Thielen in motion. McCarthy keeps. He's got it. And forces his way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Good for J.J. McCarthy, because before the fourth quarter last night, his debut was horrible. Good morning, everybody. Joe Beninati is going to join us on the show. No, not to talk Caps. Joe B's called the first two Terps football games of the year, and we'll get his thoughts on freshman phenom Malik Washington at noon. Doc will join me on the show at 12:30. This from Tree. Tree writes, we need coaching blunders back, Kevin. Please rip Ben Johnson. Yeah. Guess what, Tree? We're going to bring it back. Coaching blunders today in the 11 a.m. hour. There were a couple from the weekend that I jotted down, so we'll do that. But I want you guys also, because I don't watch every single game, and there are plenty of them that I miss, so we may turn that into a call segment. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, Ben Johnson had zero clue as to what was going on at the end of that football game. A little bit alarming. I know it's his first game as a head coach. Give him some leeway, just like I would have done had the game continued for J.J. McCarthy the way it started. I mean, it's his first game. We have to relax on these proclamations. My guy, Kevin Arlington, and I love you, Kev. I do. But Kevin was a big J.J. McCarthy guy before the 24 draft. And he just said, that's J.J. Mack, fighter, leader, QB I envisioned killing it one day with KOC, Kevin O'Connell, mentoring him. I felt he was the second best quarterback in his class after Jaden, just slightly ahead of Penix. See what I mean? Yes, he was incredibly resilient, tough, battler, all of that. The first three quarters were alarmingly awful, but it was his first game. This is a marathon, man, when it comes to quarterbacks in particular. God, you know who played great on Sunday? Daniel Jones. Caleb Williams, though, we've now seen a bunch of games, and I do have some thoughts on him. But J.J. McCarthy last night, that was big time. To do what he did in the fourth quarter, when honestly it looked like he wanted to bury his head in the sand because of the embarrassment of the first three quarters, but he didn't. And that's not what he is. I mean, I think everybody knew about J.J. McCarthy coming out of Michigan. Winner, competitor, resilient, all of those things. He was not my favorite quarterback. I did not see it with J.J. McCarthy coming out. I love Jaden, as you guys know, and I really liked Penix Jr. As kind of after Jaden. Now, I liked Caleb's talent, too. There's a lot that's starting to come out about Caleb Williams. This guy, Tyler Dunn from, where is he from? 33rd team or Go Long? I think it's Go Long. Did this big piece where he talked to a lot of people in the Chicago organization from last year. There are some issues, apparently, building with Caleb Williams in Chicago. And I did not think, even after the start, that he looked great. But we'll get to that here in a moment. The game was exciting, though. We've had 4 primetime games going back to Thursday. All 4 games have been excellent. Cowboys-Philly was good. Chiefs-Chargers on Friday night, really good. Baltimore and Buffalo, epic, all-time opening week 1 game. Seriously, it's in the conversation. By the way, I did a deep dive on something yesterday. I had this weird feeling that 41-40 as a final score, Max, was like unusual, unique. Well, Pro Football Reference, for all of you football nerds, they've got so many of these search and these tools you can use to kind of just basically investigate or deep dive on anything. And so they've had this score finder for years. I've talked about it before, but you can put in 24-17 as a final score and hit search, in every game in NFL history that's ever ended 24-17 will pop up. Well, I did that yesterday after the show. I put in 41-40, and there was one game that popped up. Buffalo, Baltimore, Sunday night. Fun fact to know and tell. The only NFL game ever to end 41-40. But
you know what that's called, right, Kev?
What?
It's called a scoregami. It's kind of a thing on NFL Twitter now. Now, the guy who posts the scoregamis, he didn't post it the night of the game, and people had thought that the guy died. So scoregami has been like when there's the first time of that score ever in NFL history. It's a big thing on Twitter now. So it's kind
really?
of
I'm unfamiliar with scoregami.
Yeah, no,
very unfamiliar with score.
People love
familiar
agami.
with NFL Nerd. Like he does some of the stuff that some of us are interested in, but I'm not familiar with scoregami.
Yeah, that's that.
So did he post that this was 41-40 first time ever?
Yeah, well, people kind of knew.
Finally?
People knew as the game was closing out. But I don't know if he even. Hold on, let me pull up his Twitter, because I know he posted final score from Monday Night Football, and people
at NFL_scoregami.
Yes, he didn't put it out. He's edging the people with this tweet. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, no, first scoregami of the year.
If I'm wrong.
No, you're not.
I'm going to go back and do it again.
You're not wrong. This is a scoregami. It is and has to be. 41-40 has never happened.
Yeah, I mean, I just went to Pro Football Reference and used the thing that I've used before, where you can search for any game score and put in the score 41-40. Let's just see. I want to do it again. Find games. And yeah, Buffalo-Baltimore is the only one in NFL history.
That's a gami.
Yeah, but he doesn't have it.
I don't know why he didn't tweet it.
So am I the first to break the news on this?
The first official with the most official power. That yes, you are.
I don't have any official power.
You have a platform.
Yeah, but not Scoregami's. He's got 500,000 followers on X.
That's true.
I'm following him right now. You just gave me somebody new to follow. I wonder if NFL Nerd had it, because I do follow him, but I didn't see that he posted that. He's much more of a schedule nerd.
Yeah, I mean, people were going crazy at the end of the game. Like, that's a scoregami. And then people were shocked he didn't tweet.
Okay,
people wanted to do a wellness
They must
check.
have thought that it wasn't a scoregami.
I suppose, but they were wrong.
Well, it was. It was. But anyway, back to the point. 4 primetime games, 4 really solid games. The next primetime game comes Thursday night, Lambeau Field, Washington and Green Bay. The last time Washington and Green Bay played in prime time, it was the first Monday night game after 9/11, and it was ugly, 30-0. I'm pretty sure that's the final score. Now I got to go back and check that, make sure I got that right. But 2001, week 2, because remember, there was a week off after 9/11. I'm sorry, 37-0. That was Marty's second game. They had lost the opener that year. I mean, it was such an ugly start. 2001 starts with Washington losing at San Diego 30-3. 9/11 happens. They take the week off. They come back. They play the Packers in week 2 on Monday Night Football. 37-0 was the final. Then they lost to the Chiefs 45-13 at home. Then they lost to the Giants 23-9. And then they blew it against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Had the game locked up basically, but ended up losing that before they turned their entire season around thanks to LeVar Arrington's pick 6 against the Panthers. They went on a 5-game win streak. I know I've referenced the 2001 season many times. Honestly, it was one of my favorite seasons in the moment because it had been a while, right? I mean, we had the nastiness of 2099 playoff season, but man, Marty seemed to have turned that whole thing around, and we know the rest of the story. Dan wasn't having much fun. Fred Drasner didn't like Marty taking away his parking spot. Vinny was out of the organization and wanted back in, and so they told Marty to pack his bags. Anyway, that's the next primetime game. So let's hope for another one that comes down to the wire, because if it does, I trust our guy over their guy. By the way, the Packers now up to a 4-point favorite in a lot of spots. There is a lot of Packers love right now out there. I was listening this morning to the Get Up show with Greenberg and all those guys. And multiple people think Green Bay now is the favorite to win the NFC Championship. I wanted to say, did you guys forget about Philadelphia, the team that just won the Super Bowl and also won their opener? They're favored at Arrowhead Sunday in the late game on Fox. It's the only 4:25 game of week 2. Philly at Kansas City Super Bowl rematch, and the Eagles are favored on the road in that game. Already people after 1 week discounting Kansas City as they don't look legit. Settle down. 1 week. Anyway, so last night's game, I got to tell you, man, Caleb Williams, this is now, year 2. There's something about him and the way he plays, and you're going to have to give it time, obviously. I mean, it's a marathon with quarterbacks, not a sprint, and this is his first game, regular season game with Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator. But, God, he looks very spastic, very hyper. There's not a lot of the calm that you would see from Oklahoma days or USC days. There's probably not a comfort with the offense yet, clearly. It's game 1. Even in the first quarter when he started off basically, I think 8 for 8, something like that, and he had a couple of big runs, including, a touchdown run. It was not a work of art in the pocket. He's athletic, and he was able to extricate himself from a couple of things. But, God, when he misses throws, he misses badly. I'm not, the book has not been written on Caleb Williams. You got to get through at least with a new coach and a new coordinator. You got to get through at least an entire season. And then the coordinator / head coach will tell you whether or not he thinks there's a chance that this will develop into something special based on his actions. If Caleb Williams plays all 17 games and you see progress, hooray. If he gets benched at some point for Tyson Badgett, the kid from Shepherd College, trouble. The Bears have some talent too. That's, the part of this that's, it's going to come down to how quickly Ben Johnson can coach up Caleb Williams. J.J. McCarthy looked terrible for the first 3 quarters. First game, nerves, I'm sure a big part of it. Clearly didn't see some things, took some sacks. I don't think the protection was that great. I think the game changed for them when Jordan Mason became the primary runner. Charch told us about Jordan Mason on Thursday's show. He was high on Jordan Mason being the guy in Minnesota before not too long. Well, not too long was last night. He had 15 carries for 68 yards. Aaron Jones had 8 carries for 23 yards. Jordan Mason actually looked really impressive. Perfect back for this scheme, comes out of the Kyle Shanahan San Francisco scheme into the Kevin O'Connell's, Shanahan, although Jay's tree, the Gruden tree, produced Kevin O'Connell as well. But once Jordan Mason got in the game and they started to run the football, running the football is pretty important for a young, inexperienced quarterback, no doubt. And that first touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson was huge because it looked like it was in traffic and it looked a little bit, discombobulated, like it was a good throw. But there were 2 receivers in the same area. I thought his best throw of the night was the 2-point conversion throw to Adam Thielen. You want to see incredible arm strength. That is a big-time NFL arm strength throw, the 2-point conversion on the out to Thielen that made it 20-17. But they scored 21 unanswered to go from down 17-6 to up 27-17. And then came the debacle of the Bears trying to manage the very end of it. It was not pleasant to watch. And if you're a Ben Johnson believer, a guy that certainly would have been a candidate had he been interested in being a head coach, I still think they would have hired Dan Quinn after interviewing him. But the touchdown drive down 27-17, when you're down 10 and you only have 1 timeout left, and that's what they were, that's what they had. They had 1 timeout left. You have to score well before the 2-minute warning. If you don't, it's pretty much game over unless you recover an onside kick. And so once they got into field goal range, and they got into field goal range quickly because Cole Kmet made an incredible catch down the seam that put him at the Chicago 35 with about 2:40 to go. Now, clock's running, and they maybe that was too long of a field goal, and that they had already missed a field goal in the game, Chicago had. But you've got to get a quick out and out of bounds and kick that field goal with about 2:20, 2:15 worst case. What you have to do is you've got to have the 2-minute warning as your second timeout. Without it, you're basically dead, because then you're into that, we're going to have to kick an onside kick. And if we don't get the onside kick, it's over, because with one timeout, they can still burn 40 plus 40. That's 80 seconds. That's a minute 20. After they punt it, it's going to be like 15 seconds left, and we're going to need a touchdown at that point. If you've kicked the field goal. If you've gone and gotten the touchdown, it's still going to be hard after the punt to get in field goal range. Ben Johnson looked absolutely oblivious to this fact in the play calling. The play calling was working the clock all the way down. They had a chance with 2 minutes and 12 seconds to go after a penalty and an injury to kick a very short field goal. That would have been the move to make it 27-20. Then you can line up, kick off, and even if they run it out, which we'll get to in a moment, then you have a chance to get the 2-minute warning as a second timeout. Then you've got a third timeout. You would have taken it before the 2-minute warning. Actually, dicey. You don't want to give them a chance to throw the football if you're going to snap with 2:04 to go. But now you're talking about a minute 10 when they end up punting it, and you've got time. That's pretty much the opportunity you have. Everybody that watches football, any kid that plays Madden knows that. Ben Johnson did not know that. It was very obvious that he thought they needed a touchdown, and he was oblivious to the fact that one timeout and not getting the 2 minute as a timeout was death. Now, they scored a touchdown with 2 minutes and 2 seconds left. So now you got to do one of two things. You got to kick it out of the end zone to force them to take a snap before the 2-minute warning, or you have to kick it out of bounds. Kicking it out of bounds, they would get the ball at the 40. All right, they'd get the ball at the 40-yard line instead of the 35 if you kick it through the end zone. If your kicker can't sail it through the back of the end zone, kick it out of bounds. Give them 5 yards, but they have to take a snap before the 2-minute warning. Of course, Kevin O'Connell knew what was going on. And in one of the most incredible, instant replay, isolated coach, kicker things that you've ever seen, back to return the kickoff was Tyson Chandler. Ty Chandler was back to return the kickoff. Minnesota had to return that kickoff because it would burn off the 2 seconds, and they'd be able to snap the ball under 2 minutes, and that would essentially mean game. Well, he was looking after he caught it about 5-6 yards deep in the end zone at Kevin O'Connell. And Kevin O'Connell, who understands this stuff, said, "Come on out." And he started waving him out. He brought it out, minute 55 left. Basically, at that point, game over. When they punted, there were 16 seconds left. And, they had 9 seconds after the fair catch, and they had to get in field goal range, and it just wasn't going to happen from their own 20-yard line. Again, first game as a head coach for Ben Johnson. I would assume he understands this stuff. But a lot of guys that have been coordinators and they become a head coach for the first time maybe don't. It looked like he had no clue as to what was going on and how badly he hurt his team's chances of keeping that game alive by not kicking the field goal with about 2:12, 2:15, 2:23 or whatever it was left in the game. And all due respect to Caleb Williams, I don't think Caleb Williams, based on that Thanksgiving Day game last year where Eberflus and Caleb Williams were basically frickin' frack in terms of the management of the clock, I don't think it was Caleb who would get it and understand it. But that's not his job. That's the head coach's job. Good football game, though. And a performance where J.J. McCarthy, for 3 quarters in his first game, looked shell-shocked by the NFL And then in the fourth quarter came up huge. He is a tough and always has been a tough kid. The other thing I was going to mention is I never thought at Michigan J.J. McCarthy looked to be 6'3". He is 6'3". I always thought he looked like a smaller quarterback. I thought he looked like a big dude last night. Minnesota's got an interesting team. They went 14-3 last year, and they said, no, we're not really into Sam Darnold, who led us or helped lead us to a 14-3. We got this kid, and we believe in him. That's a big statement, after 14-3 with Sam Darnold sort of resuscitating his career to come back and do to let him go and come back with McCarthy. They did pick him, number 10 overall. But Darnold's end to the season cost him so much money and so much of an opportunity. By the way, we're going to go around the NFL at 11 a.m., but Seattle with Darnold lost to the 49ers in the opener at home 17-13. In that game, the 49ers lost George Kittle. They probably have lost Brock Purdy for at least a game. Christian McCaffrey's banged up. Trent Williams is banged up and struggled. The 49ers have been bitten by the injury bug more than any other team in recent years, and they can't win without their star players. With their star players, they're a threat in the NFC. Long way to go. 1 week in the books. We'll go around the NFL at 11 a.m. because we did not have a chance to do that yesterday. The only game we did touch was the Baltimore-Buffalo game. All right. Up next, sort of upon further review, I went back and you know me, I'm not doing a film breakdown. I'm not an internet film breakdown person. But I did go back and watch a lot of the All-22 from the game on Sunday. And I thought that there were some interesting things that I noticed that I want to share with all of you. And I will do that when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We are free and live on the Odyssey app. All of our NFL talk, by the way, all season long here on the Team 980 is presented by Paramount Plus. Sylvester Stallone is back in the original hit series Tulsa King. This season, Dwight faces his most dangerous adversaries yet, forcing him to fight for everything he's built and to protect his empire. Stream the new season of Tulsa King on Sunday, September 21st, exclusively on Paramount Plus.
And then with Debo on the kick returns, I know that's part of who he is and what he's done for a long time. As a coach, when you're, seeing him try to hurdle guys on kick returns and knowing how valuable he is on offense, is there ever any like, oh gosh, please don't?
I wouldn't put him in if I felt like that would be the case, because I do know it's some game-breaking plays, but if we can be the best at that, then I think that's, a really big opt to do it. It's definitely different than it was, just 2 years ago. They're closer. It's different. It's a more effective way, I think, with the kick and the kick returns. We're still learning it and growing, but I do feel like he's the type of person that can be a game breaker at it.
I think that what he said there about Debo back on kick returns, where he talks about it's a different play over the last 2 years. The kickoff rule changed, made the kickoff return much more resemble a line of scrimmage play than a true return, where guys coming down have a 60, 55-yard running head start, and the collisions are much bigger. They're still that way on punts, but they're just not going to be as frequent on kickoff returns. Teams are putting two returners back there. I think we saw a significant increase over the weekend in kickoff returns because of the 5-yard extra punishment of a touchback now coming out to the 35-yard line. It makes a huge difference in the way teams are going to approach the kickoff. 35-yard line, man, is a 12% increase in score probability from the 30-yard line for a drive starting position. So that is meaningful. And so you're going to see teams trying to get that ball into the landing area between the 20 and the goal line. What was interesting in watching a lot of the games from over the weekend and even Sunday night and last night, it's not easy to do. I would think it would be easy to do, but I've seen a lot of kicks, especially the ones where kickers are trying to get some height. I've seen a lot of those kicks sail into the end zone. And I mentioned this in my recap yesterday, but Debo should not have taken that kick out of the end zone to start the game. That was 1 yard deep in the end zone. Any kick that travels over the goal line in the air should be a touchback, unless you're in the situation Minnesota was in last night where you're trying to get the clock under 2 minutes. And Debo took that out. Look, it's the opening kickoff of the season. He's excited. I don't have a problem with Debo back on kickoff returns. I think if this were 2023, instead of the rules of the last 2 years, I don't think he would be back there. And I think that's what Dan Quinn was saying. So on Tuesdays during football season, I like to do something sort of in what I would call an upon further review setting, where I go back and look at the game again. I'm not spending hours on this, and I'm not a film breakdown guy. I leave that to, the people that really know how to do it, guys like Cooley and a couple of others. But because everybody does it on the internet now. It's hysterical. You talk about a cottage industry, film breakdowns, which Cooley was the pioneer of for the most part. Now, anybody with the All 22, and I have access to the All 22, got to pay for it. You can pay for it too, can do it. But I do like to go back and look, especially in this first game, because we spent so much time in the offseason, right, contemplating, how the personnel would be used, especially the new personnel. And I found some things that I think are interesting. Overall, by the way, my game take highlights or big takeaways didn't change. The defense dominated the game. I mean, completely dominated the game at the line of scrimmage. But they also dominated the game pretty much on the back end as well. It was one of the better tackling performances, maybe, of any of the games we've seen Quinn Witt Jr. a part of here in D.C. There's also no question that the Giants are limited with Russell Wilson at quarterback. Let's not forget that. I don't know if they'll be any better when Jackson Dart gets his chance, but I would imagine, I think Russ is going to start Sunday against the Cowboys. I think Brian Dable announced that yesterday. But Russell Wilson was really a shell of his former self. And look, some of that was, I think, part of what Washington was doing defensively to confuse him. You know, there was a lot of, are they in man? Are they in zone? Looks like the play starts man. Oh my God, no, they're actually in zone. But the big takeaways of defense dominated, and simultaneously the game was a sloppy game with a lot to clean up in a short period of time. Those are still the two big takeaways from Sunday's 21-6 win over the Giants. The sloppiness being too many penalties, too many drop passes. The timeout usage was not good. Leaving points on, going into the halftime locker room on the board was not what you want to do. And you really can't do that against a better opponent. It's week one. We'll see whether or not some of the things that were good are trends versus aberrations. And we'll see whether or not they can correct and improve some of the sloppiness that was a part of the game. Now, here are some things that I jotted down. There are like 6 or 7 things that I jotted down after watching the all-22 well into the third quarter, to be honest with you. I didn't do the entire game. So one of the things that we spent a lot of time talking about in the offseason was, Kinlaw, Wise, Goldman. By the way, Goldman was, I think for some, a surprise that he made the team. There was a lot of discussion that Goldman would be waived before the season began. No, in fact, he is a significant part of their run stopping, presentation in terms of what they did in the opener. Because there are a couple of things that struck me. Number one is that they truly believe they've got a lot of versatility with their defensive line, and not just versatility in terms of the types of players they have. Within a player, they think there's a lot of versatility. Kinlaw played all over the place. Kinlaw played D end. He played D tackle. I think he was, basically a nose on a play. Payne lined up outside versus inside on a play or two. Dorrance Armstrong, all right, he is a defensive end on rundowns when he's in there. He is inside on third and long passing downs, and then he drops into coverage like a linebacker. By the way, I like Dorrance Armstrong a lot. We talked about him during the offseason. He really finished up the season strong. I think they trust him because he's smart and he's got incredible versatility. He plays D tackle on pass downs inside with Payne, and he can play D end on rundowns and again in coverage. How about Jacob Martin? I think before Sunday, most people who don't pay attention to the summer, and sort of join in, when the real games begin. Jacob Martin, number 55, is probably a guy a lot of people didn't even know. He was in the starting lineup, first defensive snaps of the season. They kind of went with a 5-man front on early downs with Goldman and Payne inside, Wise and Kinlaw at defensive end, and Martin is kind of a 5th defensive lineman. It wasn't always with Goldman as the nose, but Goldman plays some D tackle and plays nose tackle. Remember last year, sometimes we would say, is that a 5-man defensive front or is that a 3-4? It really, it depends. Like, it's a 5-man defensive front, I think, if they're all in a 3-point stance and the 2 edges are more defensive ends. And I think it's more of a 3, as long as, and then the 3-4, there's a bona fide somebody playing zero technique nose tackle. And then on the outside, you have guys that are up in a 2-point stance and they're more like linebackers. I think it's really semantics. It'd be interesting to have a conversation with Quinn or Joe Witt Jr. about how they sort of call 5-man front versus, is it a 3-4 or is it a 5-man front? But they do a lot of things. And the emphasis to stop the run starts with Goldman, Payne, Kinlaw, and Wise. Now they went with a lot of different lineups, but if you were looking to see what they did to start the season, I think it's telling. Who were the players they put out in those situations to start the season? It's probably what they envision right now as the best. Goldman's a big part of what they want to do against the run. Payne and Kinlaw, obviously, as well. Wise as well. Now, on passing downs, what they want to do is third and long, and I mentioned this, I'm pretty sure I did on the show yesterday. They have 4 guys that they put out there on 3rd and 8 or longer. The Giants had multiple 3rd and 10s and longer. And those 4 are Payne and Armstrong inside, Luvu and Von Miller outside. And by the way, on the 3rd and longs, they just rushed 4. I mentioned on the show that they did not blitz a lot. And where did I see this number? Maybe Ben put it out on his Substack column. I think he may have. The blitz percentage, Commanders blitzed on only 24.4% of the drop back snaps. It didn't seem like they blitzed a lot. In watching the game, first blush, there are the numbers. Washington's pressure rate, 4th highest in the league entering last night's game at 48.9%. Look, I think Wilson put some of that on himself a lot of the time, but Sunday, it was quick. It happened quickly. But D-line, to me, was an interesting thing to look at. And Goldman as a nose D tackle in that run game with Kinlaw and Payne and Wise, and then with, when they've got the 2 backers in the game in Luvu and Wagner, Goldman played 38% of the snaps as either a defensive tackle or a nose tackle. But they saw in the offseason that run stopping was an issue, and the way to address it was with size and, by the way, with some athleticism, because Kinlaw is athletic. Payne is athletic. And Goldman's just one big man. Wise is a tall, long dude. So, yeah, I think it's pretty clear who they think their best run stoppers are, and it's pretty clear who they think their best pass rushers are. And now we'll see, ultimately, as we go through the season, game by game, if it holds up against much better offenses, better quarterbacks, et cetera. Because the Giants, I don't think we're going to look back and say that was actually a legitimate test, because I don't think it's going to be with Russell Wilson at quarterback. So D-line. Oh, I also mentioned yesterday that or maybe it was the right after the game when I did my post-game podcast, that Johnny Newton wasn't out there enough for me. He ended up being out there more than I thought. He didn't get a full load, that's for sure, but he got more than I thought. And I thought he got some pressure on a couple of occasions. That's what was mentioned to, I think, a lot of us, early in the offseason, early in camp, is that they expected Johnny Newton to be a contributor and an impact player, especially as a pass rusher. So we'll see. They did have on one of the pass rush situations, instead of Armstrong and Payne, they had Armstrong and Kinlaw, and then Newton was in there on some 2nd and longs. The next thing I wanted to mention is, man, there is no doubt in Bobby Wagner they trust. We've heard so much about Jordan McGee and how much they like him and how much, the injuries have kind of held him back. Well, he's healthy. He was up. He played 2 snaps on defense. 2. He played special teams, but just 2 snaps on defense. They just don't trust Wagner not being on the field. He is the extension of Joe Witt Jr., and he was on the field for all 68 of New York's offensive snaps. Frankie Louvu and Quan Martin also on the field for all 68 of New York's snaps. So Jordan McGee, he may be talented, and maybe we'll see more and more of him as the season goes to try to spell Wagner. I would imagine in games that maybe are a little bit out of hand, and this one wasn't, because it was 14-6 in the 4th quarter, even though it didn't feel like it was a competitive game. We'll get Jordan McGee in late, but man, they absolutely feel like they have to have Bobby Wagner on the field. I went back and checked something. The Deebo Samuel touchdown, I mentioned yesterday that it could have been called delay a game. I was wrong. The clock hit 0, but it wasn't that full beat that they usually let the teams have before they flag them for delay a game. So it wasn't necessarily simultaneous with the snap, but it wasn't a full beat or second after. it hit zero. The blocking on that play that Debo had was, first of all, Tunsil's leading the way. Whew. When he's out on as a run blocker, I don't think anybody really wants to get in his way. Bates was out there, and Bill Krosky-Merritt was out there, and McCaffrey threw a really good block at the line of scrimmage. I went through all three of Jaden's sacks. I want to, I want to see what's going on the sacks, because there was one sack that I thought was clearly on him, and I think he's going to have to become a little bit less nonchalant on some of these. But the first sack, second quarter, it was part of the drive that ended in the Krosky-Merritt touchdown run. It was 1st and 10. The Giants literally jumped the bubble screen, and he wisely did not throw the football. And it looked like Washington should have had the advantage. They had 3 over 2, and somehow the Giant defenders were able to read it quickly and jumped it, and they weren't able to keep the path clear for Debo on the tunnel or bubble screen. And Jaden smartly did not throw it, and he took a sack. I would chalk that one up to good, instinctive defense. Sack number 2, same drive. It was a 1st and 15 after a Noah Brown offsides. And Brian Burns just beats Connerly Jr. and beats him badly and quickly, where Jaden literally had no choice. Of course, by the way, that resulted in a 9-yard loss and a 2nd and 19, and per usual, bad down and distance. No worries, no problem. They overcame it. They overcame a 2nd and 16, a 2nd and 21, a 2nd and 14, and a 2nd and 15 in that game. It has been one of those things that we can count on. It's like, how devastating, penalties and sacks. Sacks more so because the down counts. Penalties, the down typically doesn't count. But sacks are absolutely devastating to drives. Penalties tend to be devastating to drives. Not for this team. By the way, the first 2 sacks were both by Brian Burns. He's a good player. He's been a good player. Sack number 3, which is the one that made me want to go back and look at all 3, is the one where I think 100% was on Jaden. He held it. He took a huge loss. It was an 11-yard loss, -11. And he could have thrown it, could have unloaded it a couple of times. I think he could have thrown it to Ertz. There was a bit of some double coverage on Ertz, but I thought there was a hole. And Eckler was available on the check down. And he just held it too long. And Thibodeau and Carter, who, by the way, was really good in this game on special teams too, they got him. He immediately, by the way, after taking that sack, he immediately gets up, looks over to the sideline, pounds his chest and says, "My fault, my bad." Jaden definitely has that level of confidence that he can get himself out of anything, and he has for the most part. But I think sometimes it creates this feeling of, I'm okay. I don't want to say casual or nonchalant. I thought he was a little bit on that one. But anyway, didn't hurt him in that game. And that was one I don't think they overcame, the 11-yard loss. No, it was the 2nd and 21. They overcame it. Of course they did. The next thing on my list, I don't know if we played this yesterday, but Jaden, I guess, apparently after the game said that Terry was doubled all day long, and that was a reason he wasn't targeted a bunch. It's not true. Terry had 2 catches for 27 yards on 4 targets. By the way, the other 2 targets were the deep ball where Jaden misses him. Terry makes a really good move, and that's a 69-yard touchdown, unless he gets, shoestring tackled from behind, which seemed to happen a lot last year. But it's a massive play if Jaden lays it out there, and maybe it's the timing between the two of them is just a bit off. That's fine, but that was one of the targets that, let me just say, that should have been a big play. And then the other one was the play that I thought he caught the ball. Quinn challenged it. I thought it was a catch. I thought it was the right thing to challenge it, but it wasn't overturned. It was called incomplete, and it was upheld. I thought that was a bad upheld situation. I thought it should have been overturned. So, the 4 targets very easily could have ended up in another, 90 yards, 80 yards of pass reception yards, and no one would have complained if it was 4 catches for 106. but it wasn't. It was 2 for 27. And the bottom line is he was definitely not doubled all day long. A little bit here and there, but not all day. By the way, Terry had the third most targets behind Debo and Ertz and played more snaps than any receiver out there. So he was ready to go, ready for a full load, 79% of the snaps. And personally, I thought he was pretty good in the game. Again, the numbers would have been much better. And Terry blocks. Terry's a part of everything. So, but I know that, there will be a narrative that somehow Terry was doubled. The entire defense was focused on Terry McLaurin, and it wasn't. There were some plays, no doubt, some brackets, some over that top help with a safety, but not all day. One of the things that you even notice, especially when you get the overhead on the all-22, and I just made a note of this, man, the defense just swarmed all day long. And that, I think, is what, Quinn and Witt Jr. and the defensive staff, it's like, look, if we're going down playing at 110. We're flying around, we're competing, we're urgent, we're physical, we're fast, and they played fast. They played urgently, and you can just see bees on honey on some of those plays. It was the penalties and the lack of takeaways that were the negatives, but everything else was a positive. And, one of the guys that flew around almost at another level was Will Harris. He was really good in this game. The tackling in this game, I thought, was just so good because last year that was a big issue. It wasn't just that they were getting gashed, especially on the edges. They were missing tackles, not in the opener. They didn't miss any tackles in the opener. By the way, I think I mentioned this yesterday, but Matt Gay, 2 kickoffs into the end zone. Don't kick it into the end zone. I mean, please. We cannot hand the ball to the team at the 35-yard line. At the same time, it's apparently not so easy to land it between the 20 and the goal line. Oh, there was one other thing, and this wasn't even an all-22 note, but I loved how Jaden went right back to Jalen Lane after his drop. And Jalen Lane made a nice catch, a nice turn up the field. It was about a 6-yard depth, and he turned it into an 11-yard gain. I don't know if Jaden did that purposefully, but if he did, that is emotional IQ, people. You hear it all the time. Good quarterbacks come right back to a guy that, has a drop, makes a mistake. This is a rookie. He had dropped a ball. Next play, there he is with a catch and an 11-yard play. Jaden is definitely savvy. I mean, we know and we've heard, how smart he is, how, intelligent he is, but there's a smart savviness to him as well. Those were the things that I pulled. I think to me, stopping the run is going to be so massive, creating more possessions, creating better field position. The penalties hurt on the yardage on field position, even though they didn't let the Giants score. But, better starting field position. And really, they had it a couple of times because of bad punts by the Giant punter, who was not very good on Sunday. Oh, the other note I had is Abdul Carter in his first game looks like he's going to be a problem for the league. And he should have blocked 2 punts. Should have blocked 2 in the game. Shore up whatever they got going on with the punt protection for Thursday night, or we're going to see one blocked and it's going to be a big play in the game. All right. I think that's all I have. Some of what Dan Quinn said in his Monday press conference we'll get to next. 11 a.m. we'll go around the league. We didn't have a chance to do that and talk about the other 13 games that were played Sunday. We've already talked about last night's game. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, here is what's happening. It is Tuesday, September 9th, and here's what's trending around the area of DC sports. The Vikings Not DC sports, but they did complete the comeback on Monday Night Football to beat Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears 27-24 from the Windy City. The Jacksonville Jaguars are trading Tank Bigsby to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for 5th and 6th round picks in 2026 draft. This is the 5th trade the Eagles have made since mid-August. And the Nats, they beat the Marlins by a score of 15-7 last night. Cade Cavalli with a solid performance. He had 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, and giving up only 2 earned runs. He notches another win, improving his record to 3-1 on the season. Josh Bell's hot streak continues after he hit his 3rd home run in his last 2 games. Again, the Nats beat the Marlins 15-7 tonight. They will continue their series versus Miami. Mitch Parker takes the bump versus Adam Mazer. First pitch at 6:40 and Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:10 on the Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. And you can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
One other thing that I had in my notes after watching the All-22 that I forgot to mention. So Jaden on the opening drive of the game keeps the ball, and it was an 8-yard run. It was a 5-yard run, excuse me, on a read option, a true zone read where he's reading the outside edge, who is Brian Burns. He makes the wrong decision. I'm pretty sure he does. The edge plays Jaden. Jaden's just so good, he's able to outrun him to the sideline and get 5 yards. But I think that is one of those. I'd be surprised if they don't say, Burns plays it where, he certainly eyeballs Eckler, but he's playing Jaden. And if he keeps it in Eckler's, gut, I don't know how big of a run it is, but I just think that was something I mentioned a lot last year. I thought that in the zone reads that there were games in which maybe he made the wrong decisions. And remember, I had the guy that coached him up at the quarterback academy, Taylor Kelly, who came on with me a couple of times during the season last year. And he admitted that. He said they pointed that out. There have been a couple of misreads on zone read plays from Jaden, reading that D end. Not all of them are supposed to be true option plays. They'll just look like them. This one is, there's no doubt. And the reason you know that is they leave Burns unblocked. So they leave him unblocked for Jaden to read. I don't think he read it properly. That would be my guess. What do I know? But his speed allows him to beat Burns to the outside anyway. But remember, that's one of those where he took a big hit, kind of got crunched on the sideline after a 5-yard run. I'm pretty sure he should have read that the DN's playing him and left it in Eckler's gut. That's my guess. Just something to keep an eye on, because I think last year, he gets away with them because he's such an athlete, but it's not the right reads. And it also costs you sometimes big plays because they're playing the quarterback. You take another defender out of the run stopping for the back. This was Dan Quinn yesterday on the back end, the secondary, playing what I think whomever asked the question mentioned the word stingy. It was a word he liked. Here's Quinn on his secondary play on Sunday.
Looking at the back end of the defense, your quarterback room and your safeties, they look like they were stingy. They weren't giving up anything. What did you see from those guys?
I like it. Stingy. That is exactly how I felt. I knew we would be challenged. The quarterback Russ is just fantastic at throwing deep balls. So we knew that's part of, going against them, and especially with, Neighbors and Robinson, who've got real speed to get outside, Slayton as well. So that was going to be the challenge. And so I was pleased to see him battle and go for it. I know we had one foul, I believe with Trey on one. Like those ones we'll coach our way through, Donna, as we're going to learn. But I was pleased to see them. I thought there was a really good tackle also by Will that, really square, and made a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd down and 2. And the team ended up winning the next play. So that tackle that was, just there wasn't any yards after the contact. I thought just a really good tackling demonstration. So, in our first time all together, I thought the tackling was on point. I thought the DBs and the corners specifically really took to the challenge of what was going to happen on the outside.
Yeah, the tackling was excellent. It was a massive improvement on the back end from last year. And I think the hit that he's talking about is the hit on Wilson down by the goal line. It was the 3rd and goal play where Wilson scrambled and Harris absolutely laid him out, and the ball was on the ground, and Russell Wilson was able to retrieve it and pull it back in. But Will Harris was, I thought, really exceptional. That was another thing, right? Chin or Harris. Harris was cheaper than Chin. They have a bigger hitter. I'll look to see what the breakdown was, but Quan was clearly the free safety in this game and playing the deep part of the field with Will Harris much more, much closer to the line of scrimmage. And I thought he was exceptional. I'm looking to see how many tackles in the game he had, because I think Wagner led the team in tackles. Yeah, Harris was 4th in the game with 3 third with 3 solo tackles, 4th overall in total tackles. Wagner led the team in tackles. Luvu was 2nd. Quan Martin 3. Will Harris 4. Yeah. And Deron Payne, by the way, did have 2 pass defenses in the game. I mentioned he got his paws on the one, and that was where he pressured Wilson and he knocked the ball, when Wilson threw it in the general area of a running back, and Payne almost had his paws on it. But he had another one that he tipped as well. All right, we will get to everything else that happened the first Sunday of the NFL season that we did not get to yesterday. We will do that next. Again, Joe Beninati at 12, not on the Caps, but on the Terps. He's called the first two Maryland games, and he has seen the freshman phenom Malik Washington in his first two games. So we'll talk to him. Doc Walker will join us at 12:30.
Here he is throwing to the end zone. He's got a touchdown pass to Jaden Reed. Packers on the board again.
Yeah, that gave them a 17-3 lead in the second quarter. This game never in doubt. The opener at Lambeau, Packers-Lions, and it went all Green Bay's way. No Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator, no Ben Johnson as an offensive coordinator in Detroit, and it showed. Jared Goff got sacked 4 times in the game. He was 31 of 39 for 225, but a lot of that came with them down by a lot in the game. Green Bay was solid throughout and very good defensively. What was interesting about this game is that the time of possession advantage was clearly in Detroit's favor. Detroit ran 18 more plays than Green Bay did. Green Bay generated 27 points on just 47 offensive snaps. Josh Jacobs rushed for 66 yards. Jordan Love threw for 188 on 16 of 22, but 2 touchdowns. Had a very high QBR in the game, protected the football, as did all of the Packers. And defensively, they got after it. Parsons had a sack, had multiple pressures in the game. And you had also Rashawn Gary, who is an absolute stud with a sack and a half in the game as well. Packers beat the Lions 27-13. I was reading something about this game where the Packers last year in their NFC North games were outscored in the first half 99-40. And so their opportunities in those NFC North games were really difficult because of their starts. They got a good start in this one, and they won their 13th consecutive home opener, the longest such streak since the Dolphins won 13 in a row in home openers back in the 70s and the 80s. Washington's next opponent, Thursday night, the Green Bay Packers start 1-0. Let's go to MetLife for Aaron Rodgers against his team of the last 2 years, the New York Jets.
For Boswell, for the lead, sweeps the leg, 60-yarder! He's got it! Pittsburgh goes in front with 1:03 on the clock.
So I had, had the other screen on Red Zone, and then when games got close, as I'm watching our game on the big screen, following the rest of the league, it was an ugly final drive that led to the game-winning field goal. They had to kick a 60-yard field goal. They had a 1st and 10 at the Jet 41-yard line with 2 minutes and 15 seconds to go, and went backwards by 2 yards and had to kick a 60-yarder. Mike Tomlin said about Boswell, the kicker forever in Pittsburgh, he's a serial assassin. He does have a calm way about him. 60 yards, and it wasn't even close. Thing cleared by at least 5, 6, 7 yards. Of course, the story of this game was Aaron Rodgers. Although really one of the stories of the game is that this was, other than Baltimore Buffalo, the highest scoring game of the weekend with the lowest over-under total of the weekend. But Aaron Rodgers looked good. This is something I've spent a lot of the offseason talking about when we have NFL conversations. I think Pittsburgh has a chance to be good because I think they've got a quarterback this year. And most people, I think, believe that Aaron Rodgers is done. And the worst description of Aaron Rodgers recently is that the last 2 years have been a disaster. He's been terrible. Well, he didn't play 2 years ago. I mean, that's just such a terrible way to describe it. And coming off that serious Achilles injury, he didn't really get into a rhythm until about midway through last year. And then he got Devontae Adams. But as I said during the season last year, the Jets aren't bad because of Aaron Rodgers. They're bad because their defense wasn't good last year and their kicker kept missing game-winning kicks. Aaron Rodgers, when he throws the football, looks like Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, he just does. Is he as mobile? No, not at 42 years old. But that offense, with a lot of emphasis on play action and getting him outside the pocket on bootlegs, totally works. He was 22 of 30 for 244 yards, 4 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns was one of the shovel pass forward to I think it was Jaylen Warren in motion. I think it was Jaylen Warren. It might not have been Jaylen Warren. But anyway, he's got DK Metcalf. He's got Jonnu Smith. I think Jonnu Smith's going to be big for him. Jaylen Warren was the back. I thought he was better than Najee Harris anyway. And the Steelers hold off the Jets 34-32. The big concern for the Steelers would be, why are we giving up so much on defense? The Jets rushed for 182 yards. Breece Hall rushed for 107 yards, 5.5 per carry. Justin Fields rushed for 48 yards, threw for 218 on 16 of 22. Fields had one of the best games of his career. Garrett Wilson, he is a stud, although he did have a chance to hold on to a ball late for a first down, and the ball in his body was separated after a huge hit by Jalen Ramsey. Steelers get a season-opening win in dramatic fashion. Aaron Rodgers looked great. They have the Seahawks this Sunday at home. They are a very short favorite. I think defense looks to be an issue for Pittsburgh this year, and you'd never think that with them. It's just one game, but man, the Jets seem to be, a team that would struggle offensively, and they put up one of the most impressive offensive performances of the entire first week. Let's go to Seattle for the 49ers and the Seahawks.
For the win. He swinged out into the end zone, wasn't open. Purdy keeping it alive. Brock Purdy lofts one. It is Tunges. Touchdown, San Francisco.
Jake Tunges is the name. That came with just a minute 34 left in the game. It gave San Francisco a 17-13 lead, and ultimately the win as Nick Bosa and a few others disrupted Seattle's last opportunity with excellent defense. I don't know how that guy Jake Moody is still kicking for San Francisco. He missed 2 field goals. He was terrible last year. They've got to replace him. Missed 2 field goals, including a short one. Brock Purdy injured in the game. He probably will not go this coming Sunday against the Saints. Also banged up in the game, George Kittle. He could be out 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring injury. This was the problem, of course, with San Francisco last year, was keeping people healthy. Look, their schedule, it goes Saints, Cardinals. I think the Jags are improved, so I'm not going to say the Jags at home easy, but they've got the Saints and the Cardinals the next 2 weeks, the Saints on the road. Maybe they can withstand the loss of a couple of key players. In terms of quarterback, and if Brock Purdy doesn't go, it's Mac Jones. He is the backup quarterback in San Francisco. But the 49ers win 17-13. Outstanding defense. They held the Seahawks to just 230 total yards of offense. Sam Darnold was, not the turnover machine or the sack-taking machine that he's been, but he wasn't that good. Let's go to SoFi for Houston and the Rams.
Stroud, and he's got him underneath. It's called Balgumbo. He fumbles the ball, and it's loose, and it's recovered by the Rams.
Yeah, that was the end of the game. Houston driving for potentially a game winner. Let me just tell you, the Rams had this game wrapped up as well, but they fumbled the football. I think a tight end, Parkinson caught it. Receiver Parkinson caught it and was hit, fumbled. It was called incomplete on the field, but it was reversed. Houston took over down 14-9, and they end up giving it back to the Rams in what was a very defensive, low-scoring game. Rams hold on 14-9 in this game. A lot of penalties. But ultimately, when the Rams got the ball back, they were able to run out the clock. Stafford, 21 of 29 for 245, a touchdown, no picks. Kyron Williams rushed for 66 yards. And how about Puka Nacua? 10 catches on 11 targets for 130 yards. Devontae Adams in his first game as a Ram, 4 catches, 51 yards. This is a talented football team. If they can stay healthy at the quarterback position, they get a win. Interestingly, one of the guys we talked about in the offseason as a possibility for Washington, obviously they thought they already had their back in Bill, but Nick Chubb was out there forever. Chubb looked really good. He got the bulk of the carries with Joe Mixon out in Houston, rushed 13 times for 60 yards in the game as the offense struggled really without his running ability to move the football. The Rams beat the Texans in the opener 14-9. Let's go to Atlanta for the Bucks and the Falcons.
2 from 44. It is wide to the right. No
This was one of those games where there were kicking issues. That was Young Hoku missing the game-tying, overtime forcing kick from 44 yards out. I mean, he's better than that. On the other side, Chase McLaughlin missed a field goal and an extra point. The extra point would have given Tampa Bay a 24-20 lead and given Atlanta only one way of winning the football game, and that would have been to score a touchdown. In this game, Baker Mayfield threw 3 touchdown passes, only 167 yards. The running backs around the league, there were a couple, but really Bill was way up there in terms of rushing yards because some really good backs in this game, and they did not produce. Bucky Irving, 14 of 37 for Tampa. Bijan Robinson, 12 for 24. I don't know if he's ever had a worse day. And Tyler Algier was 10 for 24. Maybe you could argue the best 1-2 running back tandem in the league with Algier and Robinson. 22 carries, 48 yards. Penix Jr., 27 of 42, 298, a touchdown, no interceptions, sacked just once. His QBR was 83.7. I really like Penix Jr. I think he's going to be an excellent quarterback, but the Falcons lose. The Bucks get off to a 1-0 start. All right, a few more games to get to. We'll come back. We went through Baltimore, Buffalo, if you're wondering, on yesterday's show. We just spent so much time with it. It was all we got through. But there were a few more games, especially late in the day, we'll touch on when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
Today, and it's 2nd and long. Flacco pressure again. Able to somehow get away. The pass deflected and intercepted. Picked off by Jordan Battle. Battle working his way near the 25 before he's dropped. Fannin on the tackle, but Battle with the acrobatic pick to set the Bengals up in Cleveland territory.
Yeah. Poor Joe on Sunday. The Browns should have won this football game against Cleveland. I talked about on Friday how a lot of the survivor picks tend to go down. The big, heavy survivor plays tend to go down in week 1. Last year, it was Cincinnati against New England. This year, I think probably people had Denver, people had Cincinnati, and both of them were in some peril. Listen to this. The Cincinnati Bengals in the game against Cleveland in the second half of the game generated 2 yards of offense. 2 in the second half of the game against the Cleveland Browns. Overall, the Cincinnati Bengals, this vaunted offense, this is the NFL for you in a nutshell. Like everything you're convinced is true can completely go the other way, at least for a week. The Bengals, one of the best offensive teams, best passing teams last year in the league. They had 141 yards of total offense and 2 yards in the second half. I mean, Joe Burrow, 14 of 23, 113 yards. Jamar Chase, 2 catches for 26 yards. I mean, they could not move the football against Cleveland's defense. The difference in this game, 2 interceptions, neither of which was Joe Flacco's fault. Ball was bobbled by receivers, not to the ground, but up into the air where DBs picked him off. It was one of those where, the receiver has it and then they bobble it. Instead of bobbling it, having it go through their arms and hit the ground incomplete, they bobble it upwards, updraft, and they got picked off. God, I wanted Cleveland to win this game. I had them on the money line. I also had them plus 5.5. And it was that and their dumb kicker. Their dumb kicker in this game missed a field goal and an extra point. And they lost 17-16 in a game, I am telling you, they were clearly the better team. It's only 1 week. You can only do this 1 week at a time, especially early in the season. You can only say, this is what we saw for this game, but it doesn't mean it'll be anything like that the next game. Keep that in mind as we watched our team. Defense dominant in this game. We have no idea what will happen on Thursday night. We're optimistic that the addition of Kinlaw and Goldman and Wise and Will Harris are helpful. Flacco in the game was 31 of 45, 290 yards, had one of the better days throwing the football of anybody in the league. They could not run the football against Cincinnati's defense, which was stout. Terrible defense last year, terrible in every possible way. They held Cleveland to 2 yards per carry. So Flacco was doing it with no run game and no kicker. Cincinnati very, very lucky to win their opener at Cleveland. They were not the better team. I think it sets up a very interesting week 2 game. Cincinnati and Jacksonville, the game in Cincinnati. Jacksonville actually looked impressive in their opener, and I think a lot of people believe that Trevor Lawrence is going to do something at some point. New coach, we'll see if Liam Cohen can get it done there. But an interesting game. It's only week 2, long season, but maybe a big game when it comes down to something like a wild card berth tiebreaker. Cincinnati hosting Jacksonville. They had no business beating Cleveland on Sunday. Cleveland's defense was outstanding. And look, it's not just Myles Garrett, although he did have 2 sacks and 4 total TFLs. Myles Garrett, let's just say it. He's the best defensive player in the league, and I'm not even sure it's close. And he's been the best defensive player in the league for a while now, and he is going straight into the Hall of Fame when his career is over. But they added that kid from UCLA, Schlesinger. He had a really good game. They've got Delpit. They've got Newsome back there. They've obviously got Denzel Ward. But they're a problem, defensively, if they can just not mess it up offensively. But yeah, Myles Garrett, 2 sacks and 4 total TFLs with 5 total quarterback hits in the game. That's a game-wrecking player in the league for sure. Let's go to Indy for a surprise, I guess. I guess it's the final score that surprised more than anything else, but the Colts and the Dolphins.
Last year, Jones looking for the touchdown. He's got it. Second rushing touchdown today for Daniel Jones. And the Colts are pouring it on against the Dolphins.
Yeah, at one point in this game, they led the Dolphins early in the fourth quarter 30-0. The final score was 33-8. The Dolphins defense and their secondary in particular was abysmal. Daniel Jones, again, the quarterback thing being a marathon, and it's really tough. Unless you're really in the league and you know these personalities and you know there's no offense that fits this guy, he's just terrible. But you just never know. Daniel Jones and Shane Steichen, and we'll see. 22 of 29 for 272, a touchdown throwing the football. And he rushed 7 times for 26 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had a QBR of 87.5. That's got to be the best QBR Daniel Jones has had in a few years since that really good season. Keep in mind, the Colts have some talent on offense. They've got Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. They have Michael Pittman Jr. They've got Alec Pierce. They've got Josh Downs. They added Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. He had 7 catches for 76 yards in his first NFL game. That AFC South, you never know. It always seems to be in play. Jacksonville, Houston, maybe Indy ends up surprising. The Dolphins have major issues. Certainly, it looks like Mike McDaniel's time is coming to an end. And then story today, not that it would be a shocking story in terms of the headline, Tyreek Hill accused of domestic violence by estranged wife. Accusation, but he certainly has some history there. That is for sure. Rough opener for the Dolphins and the Colts. Meantime, get a win that was a smell test selection, and they get Denver in week 2 at home early in the 1:00 window. Speaking of Denver, they opened up at home against Cam Ward in Tennessee.
4-man rush. Nix pumps, throws, got a man. It's Sutton. It's a touchdown.
Denver won this game. They didn't cover by a half point. I was excited about that. Cam Ward's debut, 12 of 28, 112 yards, 6 sacks taken, a 7.3 QBR. That looks terrible. 5 dropped passes in this game. By the way, Calvin Ridley had 3 of them. His best receiver. Towards the end of the game, too, they were down 20-12 after a very mystifying decision by Sean Payton. We'll get to that in coaching blunders. And Cam Ward delivered 3 strikes, and 2 of them got dropped. Look, I didn't see this whole game. I read, I think it was Ben Solak's review of all of the quarterbacks in new places, and he essentially said the numbers are unkind to Cam Ward. He was better than what the numbers reflect because of some of the drops. But Denver wins 20-12 in this game. They ran the football, man, and you know who they ran the football with? I mentioned Nick Chubb in Houston, who was out there during the offseason. Well, so was J.K. Dobbins. He rushed 16 times, led Denver in rushing attempts. For 63 yards, 4 yards per carry. Cortland Sutton got that contract in the offseason. 6 catches, 61 yards. Bo Nix, 25 of 40 for 176 through 2 picks in this game. So a rough game for him, but Denver overcomes Tennessee. They were the biggest favorite on the week 1 board. They didn't cover, but they got the win, and they're at Indy on Sunday. How about Drake May and the Patriots with Mike Vrabel in his first game against Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, and the Las Vegas Raiders? Let's go to Foxborough.
An all-out pressure look. Here they come. Smith protected, hoisted to the end zone. Wide open. Tucker. Touchdown.
Trey Tucker, that would be. 2 catches, 54 yards, a score. The Raiders had more explosive plays in week 1 than any team in the league. Geno Smith, 24 of 34 for 362 yards. He does take sacks. Look, Geno Smith is a risk taker. He is a gun slinger. There is no doubt about that. And he is capable of getting hot and producing at a high level. With the interception and 4 sacks comes also a lot of big plays. A 38-yard completion to Brock Bowers, a 36-yard completion to Dante Thornton Jr., a 28-yard completion to Tucker, a 24-yard completion to Jacoby Myers, a 23-yard completion to Jack Beck, the rookie from TCU. They beat the Patriots 20-13. A rough day for Drake May. He was 30 of 46 for 287, a touchdown and an interception. Got sacked 11 times in the game. 11 times, 4 times in the game for 11 yards. Had a very low QBR number. Ashton Genty in his debut, 19 carries, 38 yards, 2 yards per carry. Rough day for the running backs around the league for the most part. Travion Henderson in New England, we saw him with the opening kickoff in preseason game number 1. 5 rushes for 27 yards, had 6 catches in the game, so they got him 11 touches. But I think New England was a popular pick to be one of those teams that, goes from terrible to maybe a playoff berth. They lose their home opener to the Raiders. Let's not forget, the Raiders come here a week from this coming Sunday for a 1:00 game against Washington, and they'll come into that game off of a Monday nighter against the Chargers in Vegas. There's a doubleheader on Monday Night Football this coming week, and that includes a 10:00 Eastern start between the Chargers and the Raiders, and then the Raiders come here with Washington having that long break off the Thursday night game. So that's one of those games where West Coast team, short week, 1:00 kick on the East Coast, and the East Coast team has had the extra days of rest. It's the best scenario net rest days of the season for Washington because they do have a significant net rest disadvantage for the season, for the entire year. The other games we didn't put into sort of the highlight section. The Cardinals beat the Saints 20-13 in Kellen Moore's debut as the head coach in New Orleans. Spencer Rattler was the starter there. Kyler Murray threw 2 touchdowns, was efficient, 21 of 29, and they got 150 yards rushing from not only Murray but Connor and Trey Benson. I'm telling you, the star. You got Bowers, you got Kittle. You got Kelsey, you got the young guys Loveland, and you got Warren, but Trey McBride is a legit star at tight end for Arizona. 6 catches, 61 yards in this game. And then the other game was the game that got delayed by lightning for a while and didn't end until well into the 4:00 window, but Jacksonville opens up with a 26-10 win over Carolina. Trevor Lawrence, pretty good. Travis Etienne, he was one of those backs a few years ago that I really liked from Clemson. Travis Etienne, who's battled injuries, 16 for 143. De'Ami Brown in the game had 2 rushes for 6 yards and had 3 catches for 52 yards in the game. They will be using him a lot. There was a lot written about how much they liked De'Ami Brown after signing him in the offseason. Jacksonville's 1-0. Tough start for Carolina and Bryce Young, who threw 2 picks in the game and lost a fumble as well. All right, so there you go. The entire NFL Week 1 slate. I mean, we had good games. We had a good Thursday night opener. We had a good Friday night game in Brazil. On Sunday early, you had Tampa, the Atlanta come down to the final field goal. Browns-Bengals was close. Steelers-Jets, certainly dramatic. Late window, you had, the Rams and Texans, the 49ers and Seahawks come down to the last possession. And then the Sunday night game was an epic. I mean, it will, that is, we got after this weekend, there are 272 NFL games in a season. minus 16. We got 256 left. 4+ months in the regular season. Going to be hard pressed, I think, to top Bills Ravens. That's one of those where it's like week one's not a head fake. Those are two really good football teams. And then we had the game last night with the two quarterbacks being kind of the headline, and the comeback in the fourth quarter led by J.J. McCarthy in his first start. Looking ahead, obviously Washington, Green Bay, a big highlight of the week 2 slate on Thursday night. But on Sunday, you've got a couple of very interesting games. How about Seattle at Pittsburgh in the 1:00 window, and then late Eagles and Chiefs at Arrowhead in the Super Bowl rematch. And then Monday night, doubleheader, Bucks, Texans, and Chargers, Raiders, which could be interesting with the way Justin Herbert looked and with the way Geno Smith looked in the opener. All right. We will more likely than not during the course of the season do Around the NFL on Tuesdays. Denton and I rarely got to it on Mondays because it was so dominated by Washington games. Although this Monday, we won't have a Washington game to talk about. All right. Want to open up phone lines at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. The first NFL weekend is in the books. Week 2 of college happened as well. What did you learn from the weekend? What did you learn? Tell me something in all of the football watching over the weekend or the game you went to on Sunday in Landover. What did you learn from this last previous football weekend? 301-230-0980. I think it's hard to learn a lot from week 1, but I have a couple of things that I'll mention when we come back. But phone lines are open, 301-230-0980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980, theteam980.com. We are free and live on the Odyssey app. And don't forget that Window Nation right now has a great deal going on. In fact, it's the most popular deal of the year that Window Nation offers. Buy 2, get 2 free, and don't pay anything for 2 years. So if you've been thinking about new windows, my recommendation is to pick up the phone, dial 866-90-NATION, or go to windownation.com. When they ask you how you found out about Window Nation, please mention my name. They'll take really good care of you. They'll schedule immediately a very convenient in-home estimate. It's free of charge. They don't pressure you. They don't obligate you to anything. You'll actually find out which windows in your home need to be replaced. But then you can make the call. You can shop the offer. I don't think you'll find a better offer than buy 2, get 2 free with no money down, no payments, and no interest. You won't pay anything until the year 2027. You're not going to work with a better company than Window Nation when it comes to the product or customer service. They've got over 45,000 5-star reviews. They've got a 96% customer satisfaction rating. 96% of their installs require no follow-up service. You're going to be working with a company that was recently ranked highest on Forbes's list of best window installation companies. You can trust Window Nation, I promise you, for high-quality, affordable windows. Hurry. This sale ends at the end of the month. Don't miss out. Call them at 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com.
All right, it is Tuesday, September 9th, and here's what's happening. The Vikings, they completed the comeback on Monday Night Football to beat Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears 27-24 from the Windy City of Chicago at Soldier Field. The Jacksonville Jaguars are trading Tank Bigsby to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for 5th and 6th round picks in the year 2026. This marks the 5th trade that the Eagles have made since mid-August, and the Nats, they beat the Marlins by a score of 15-7. Cade Cavalli with a solid performance, 5 innings pitched, giving up only 6 hits and 2 earned runs. He notches another win on his belt and improves to 3-1 on the season. Josh Bell's hot streak continues, hitting his 3rd home run in his last 2 games. Tonight, the Nats will take on the Marlins to continue their series. Mitch Parker on the bump versus Adam Mazer. First pitch at 6:40. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:10. Also on the Team 980, the Mystics, they take on the Liberty 25-17, taking on 16-27, the Mystics at 7 p.m. right here on the Team 980. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right, what'd you learn from this past weekend of football? If you want to go baseball, that's fine. The Nats, by the way, had a big outing against the Marlins. The Nats have very quietly, because it's football season, won 6 of 7. They hammered the Marlins 15-7. What a day for Josh Bell, who switch hit his way to a 4 of 6 for 6 RBIs, 2 home run night against the Marlins. All right. I have learned 2 things. I think week 1 in the NFL is always hard, but I do have one NFL and I've also got one college thing that I learned. 301-230-0980. What'd you learn from this past weekend? So number 1 for me is that Robert Saleh was easily the best coordinator hire of the offseason. The former head coach in New York for the Jets, but remember, also the former defensive coordinator for Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. When he left to take that gig, they hired Steve Wilks. I don't know why they got rid of Steve Wilks. because they were pretty good with Steve Wilkes, but they promoted Nick Sorensen. They weren't good defensively last year. It's only one game. I'll give you the numbers. It's only one game. I get that. But they completely shut down Seattle, held them to 230 yards, 13 points, turned them over twice, 3 for 10 on third down. A rough day for Seattle's offense. Defensively, you have some talent, obviously, with Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, etc. But this is what Fred Warner said about having Robert Saleh back in the building. It's huge. I've talked about it all off season. Just the confidence that you have as a player with such a dialed-in coach like that. It was great, again, having him back on the sideline and making adjustments as the game went along. Robert Saleh in San Francisco is huge. The 49ers have to stay healthy. They've got some talent, but they will be a much better defensive football team than they were last year with Robert Saleh as the D coordinator. The other thing that I learned from this past weekend is that it's a little bit early, in fact, way too early, for Michigan quarterback Bryce Underwood. Five-star, committed initially to LSU. Then there's the whole story of Portnoy and all the money to get him to Michigan. And in his first big spot on Saturday night in Norman against Oklahoma, he looked terrible. Now, it's his second start. It's his first real one. I'm not saying that Bryce Underwood isn't going to end up being the top pick in the NFL draft down the road, because that's what people believe about Bryce Underwood. He's that gifted. But one of the things that was so obvious in watching Michigan with this true freshman at quarterback is he doesn't see it. He is absolutely right now overwhelmed. Now, Oklahoma and their coaching staff will do that to you defensively. But Bryce Underwood did not look like the guy that's ready to do it now this year for Michigan. And if they ride out 2025 with Underwood, it's going to be a long year for Michigan. Maybe it's the right thing to do, and next year he ends up being the guy and gets all the experience. But, you know, they got to go on the road to face Nebraska in 2 weeks. They've got to go to Southern Cal. They got to go to Michigan State. They have to obviously play Ohio State. And this kid looked completely out of it and not ready for it in prime time on Saturday night. Those are the two things that I learned. What about you, Max?
So one big thing that I learned from this weekend, and I'm going to go kind of around the league, but this is not really local to Washington, but there's just one guy that I've been really high on. And this ties into my my Bucs Super Bowl prediction. Emeka Egbuka burst onto the scene this weekend, and he looked so good, catching 2 touchdowns. Not only that, but just the routes he was running, like he just looked great and really crisp with just the steps he was taking. So That was one big thing that I learned. And then the other thing that I learned, I'm bringing it back to Washington, that defensive line has been overhauled and the league is on notice. I think that this defense, I understand, they played the Giants. The Giants don't exactly have the best offensive line, especially without Andrew Thomas. But they weren't doing any of this against that offensive line last year with the completely different look that they had. Now, Daron Payne is in a contract year. He looks hungry. Javon Kinlaw looks just as hungry. I think Johnny Newton said to him prior to the game, I think he said this on G&D yesterday. He told him, you have the opportunity to be one of the best defensive tackles in the league. All you got to do is go do it. And he looks like he's on that path, and he looks like he's ready to go. So Washington's defensive front back.
It is certainly different, and it's a lot bigger. Tomorrow night, Thursday night, will be a big test. Stan in Jersey, what'd you learn from this past weekend?
I learned that coaching, as usual, is suspect. I got a couple mistakes that I'd like to go over with you. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned them.
Go ahead, quickly, because I want to get to some other callers. But are you going to start with Sean Payton?
No, I'm not going to start with Sean Payton. I'm actually going to start with Kevin O'Connell yesterday.
Last night?
The end of the half.
Yeah.
He had first and 10 at the Bears 41 with 11 seconds and kicked a 59-yarder. He needs to throw the ball out of bounds a couple times to make that the last play of the half. If he misses, the Bears had one timeout, and they would have been at the 48-yard line. There was only going to be 6 seconds left, but the Bears would have had one play to call the timeout and then kick their own field goal because Kevin
if he
Collins didn't wanna
misses
throw
it, the ball's
out of
at
bounds.
the 49-yard line. It's at midfield, 6 seconds to go. He kicked it with 11. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, should have
He needs to throw the
absolutely
ball
run
away
another
twice.
play and just
Yeah,
rolled
you gotta
McCarthy out and had him throw the ball out of bounds outside the pocket. And then
he
kicked it.
needed to make
Yep.
sure that was his last field goal attempt. That's a bad job.
Agreed. What's your next one?
Harbaugh on Friday night to end the half. You know when the kid ran out of bounds and it stopped the clock and gave the Chiefs the possession to kick the field goal at the end of the first half?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, Hampton, the rookie from North Carolina. Yeah.
Yes, this is a problem with Harbaugh. He did the right thing, but he did the wrong thing. They were 3rd and 16 at the Kansas City 26, right? So they did the right thing by running the ball. You can't run a stretch play where you risk a holding call or the guy running out of bounds.
Yeah.
If you just run a sneak or even take a knee, I don't even care if you take a knee and you lose a yard. There's very little difference in a 44
How
yard.
about with Justin
gotta
Herbert, 3rd and 16 with 54 seconds to go, trying to continue to try to get 6?
Yeah, well, you can, but I mean, you can't. The probability of getting that 3rd and 16 is awful. So I like the run call. I would have just snuck it and tried to get a no gain and then kick the 43-yarder.
Yeah, the Chiefs didn't have any timeouts left. Yeah, no, I got you. One more quickly because I got to get to other calls. You know how much I love talking to you, but we're tight on time.
I hear you. The Dan Quinn at the end of the first half, the call was right on the on doing the draw. It needed to be done on first down. I can't believe he did not do that on first down.
Let me just tell you something. You know who made the play there was Carter. Carter makes an unbelievable play. That thing's an easy first down. You're clocking it. It probably is a touchdown if Carter's not on the field.
Yeah, but there was 28 seconds in a first down play. That's what it has to be run.
23 was the next one. Yep.
Yeah, and you risk exactly what happened by doing.
Well, they may have liked the down and distance for the QB draw. They went empty. They ran it a couple of times, and I also don't know if that's a check, on that particular play. But it certainly looked like.
I agree.
Thanks, Stan.
I
always.
like the call. I like every. All right.
Yeah, appreciate it. Let's go to Ross in Tampa. Ross, what'd you learn from this past weekend?
Good, Kevin. Here's what I learned from this weekend. For college, man, can you drive up to Baltimore and tell Todd Monken to take the job back at Georgia? Because, my goodness, ever since he left Georgia, we should have blown Austin P out like 85.
Wasn't there a rain delay or a lightning delay that sort of messed up and mucked up that game or not? Am I thinking about some other game?
Was all over the Eastern Shore. Yeah. It was a rain delay. But, come on, Kevin. This is Austin freaking P versus Georgia. And, when it was him in 2021-22, a lesser opponent, an outmatched Power 5 guy, they're going to get blown out by 28-plus points. 28 to 6.
They're favored at Tennessee, just so you know, Saturday afternoon. They're favored.
3.5 points or something
3.5, 4.
I'm nervous about that game. Their new quarterback's looking pretty nice.
Yeah.
And for the pros, listen, this is the second time a kicker in Cleveland's cost me money. The first one, he was the guy who was twirling his hair with us in Washington, right. Zane Gonzalez, back in 2018. Yeah. And the whole gambling thing, man, when I got like a 5-leg parlay and that's the only one that lost me the money.
Cleveland had no business losing that game. No business losing that game. That was one of those that, you look back on it. If they play that, both teams play the same way. Kicker and just the bad luck of the interceptions that got bobbled up into the air it was unfortunate because I had Cleveland on the money line. Thanks, Ross. Taylor, go ahead. What'd you learn from this past weekend?
Hey, what's going on, Kevin? All right, look, the NFL week 1, week 2, and week 3 and week 4 are probably the most sloppiest weeks of the NFL. There were so many penalties. There were over 240 penalties out of all the NFL games in week 1. Last year, there's roughly 206. And you're talking about penalties. These guys don't play in the preseason. These guys need to start playing more football because the first 2 weeks get really, really sloppy. I mean, the NFL's on pace for 122 more offensive holding calls than last year. Delay of games, 121 more than last year. Defensive holding, 60 more than last year. So I know it's just week 1, but the NFL looks super sloppy all across the board. We have to do better.
Interesting. So was the 240 a record? I didn't
don't know
see
if there's
that.
a record. I couldn't find the record, but I do know these are creeping up constantly in week 1, week 2, and week 3 as, again, guys just aren't playing more football. A lot of these calls are offensive holding, defensive holding, the delay of game. I mean, these are obviously things you would work out, these kinks in the preseason. So I don't know what's going on with the NFL refs.
Yeah, I mean, look, there were 18 penalties,
but
18 total in our game, 12 Washington, 6 on the Giants. And I'm just looking to see the nature of the penalties. The penalties on Washington this weekend, 6 offensive, 5 defense, 1 special teams. Yeah. All right. Yeah, thanks. We're used to that. The doing away with the preseason in terms of players playing. These are games essentially that are extensions of the preseason, with one exception. They count. Hal in Kensington, finish it up for us. What did you learn from this past weekend? Hal, you there?
Yeah. Can you not hear me, Kevin?
I got you now, Hal.
Can you not? All right. Sorry about that. First of all, your callers are really smart. Those last 2 callers really taught me a lot. So very impressive. I learned that it's fun to root for the local team. I haven't rooted for the Washington team since the last millennium. I just looked at when the former owner bought the team. And I know you and I don't agree on this, but I prefer I don't like the new name, but I like it better than the old one. So I'm enjoying rooting for this team. Started rooting for them again last year.
Kind of like a new team for you.
It's a new team for me, and I was always been a Giants fan, but I was very happy to see Washington win Sunday. So just a personal note there to end this segment. Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
As always.
Appreciate it. Joe Beninati is going to join us next. Joe has called Maryland's first 2 football games, where freshman Malik Washington is a true freshman starter at quarterback, highly rated coming in. We'll get Joe's thoughts on the Terps next. Joe Beninati's been calling games for years in this town, the voice of your Washington Capitals, but he calls a lot of other sports too. He is excellent on football. He's been doing college football for a while now, and he's had Maryland's first 2 games where he has seen freshman quarterback Malik Washington, not necessarily against top-tier opponents, but he has seen the debut of the quarterback. Terps play Towson this coming week in College Park. That game kicks off at 12 p.m. It's on Peacock. I doubt Joe has that game. I think Joe has the games on Big Ten Network. Do we have Joe? All right, good. We have Joe. You know how much of a fan I am of you over the years. You're unbelievably good at everything you do. And I just want to ask you before we get to Maryland, after hockey, what's your next favorite thing to do, play-by-play wise?
Great question. Tough question. There's a love of lacrosse, Kevin, from playing it as a youngster and through high school and through college that makes it really special when I get a chance to do a major Division I college game or an international game, men's or women's in lacrosse. I really do look forward to that, but it's hard to beat. Like if you get a really good college football Saturday night, that is, from an announcer standpoint, that's the place you want to be. Football, bar none, and you would know this, not even close. Football makes me work harder than any sport.
Yeah.
The amount of prep work for those 2 games. I did the opener with Florida Atlantic. I did Maryland's follow-up with Northern Illinois. I swear to you, I worked for 6 weeks for those 2 games.
The early season college football rosters and depth charts, NFL preseason games are really hard, but it's not a 3 deep. You get like a 6 deep, don't you?
You try to, and then the coaches want to respectfully tell you, oh no, this team's going to give us a great battle. Can you please tell me who your 5th, 6th, and 7th linebacker is? No. They're going to give us a great battle. They're going to push. And meanwhile, you have all this wonderful stuff on the first 2, 3 linebackers. But then if it gets to be 42-0 in the third, there's trouble. Thankfully, in these 2 Maryland cases, I didn't have to go 3 and 4 deep. So Matt Millen and I were really, really comfortable with personnel. And I can't tell you and your listeners, Kevin, how much appreciation I have for the coaching staff, Coach Loxley and his coordinators, Monachino and Hamilton, just fantastic, and how well they've knitted together as a staff and the way they interact, not only with us media types, but you can see the players just love to work with them.
Joe, you didn't even mention the duplicate numbers, which makes it really hard.
A few years ago, I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska, and there's a duplicate number 5 on the team that was playing Nebraska. I think it was a Troy State game that I was doing at Nebraska.
Yeah.
And the 2 5s, Kevin, it's okay if one number 5 is 6'5" and 350 pounds, and the other number 5 is 5'11", 190. Right. You can tell the difference. There was a punt return for a touchdown. The number 5s were duplicate, and the body types were almost the same. The first 25 yards, I wasn't sure of the return. And I hate that because I'm sitting there going, is it Beninati? Oh my God. Is it Jones? Is it Lachlan? Announcer problems. But yeah, there's a lot of dupes like that. But those duplicate numbers, more often than not, one guy is not on a kick coverage, or more often than not, one guy is 80 pounds bigger than the other.
Yeah, the for those that are like, wait a minute, hold on, why? Because college rosters are like 100 deep, and when you are calling a game early in the season and you're trying to put together your charts and your depth charts, first of all, they give you a depth chart, and half the time it's really not even accurate. And then in college, because you have so many players, an offensive and defensive player can have the exact same number, but then they can also play on special teams.
Without a doubt. And sometimes the duplicate number has to change his number to be on a kick.
Yeah, they got to put on another jersey.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. But again, I reference Nebraska because Nebraska is notorious for its walk-on program. When Nebraska is playing at home, they dress close to 140 kids. And honestly, you need to be ready for at least 70 of them.
Right. Basketball is the easiest to do because it's so, I mean, you got basically 8 players that are going to play, maybe 9, and a total of 14 or 15 on the roster. That's pretty easy versus football.
Love it.
Who do you have this week?
I have Idle, IDLE.
That probably feels good. When's the next game? When's your next game?
I'm wondering and crossing my fingers that Big Ten Network will get me one more before the start of the Caps season. Believe it or not, I have a Caps preseason game in, what is today, the 10th? I have a Caps preseason game in 10, 11 days.
Wow. Okay, so once that starts, once that starts, you'll do no more college football?
I can try to mix it in, but more than likely those Fridays and Saturdays are going to be locked up. But Big Ten Network's often really good at getting me the last week in August and 2 or 3 dates in September, and I'm really appreciative. The funny thing is they give me lots of football. They give me tons of lacrosse. They don't give me any hockey at all. 0.
That's crazy. I'm trying to think. Have you done Big Ten basketball games?
Negative. Not for Big Ten Network. No.
Okay.
The most of the college hoops that I've done, the last would have been all CAA stuff when we had it locally.
Right. Yeah. Joe Beninati, of course, that's a very recognizable voice in this town, and he's really good at calling football, and he's called Maryland's first 2 games with Matt Millen against Florida Atlantic Labor Day weekend. They beat Florida Atlantic, had 6 interceptions, won the game 39-7, and then on Friday night in College Park, they beat Northern Illinois 20-9, and the big story with Maryland football here early in the season is that true freshman, 4-star, highly recruited Glen Burnie, Maryland's Malik Washington has gotten both starts. So two-part question. One, what have you and Matt thought watching Malik Washington? And then as you get a chance to talk with, coordinators Pep Hamilton, Loxley, et cetera, what are their thoughts about his early development?
Matt and I were definitely, Kevin, in lockstep with our impression of Malik. And we had a chance to talk with him prior to the Northern Illinois game. They made him available to us for a good 15, 20 minutes. You would be amazed at how mature a 19-year-old kid this is. He is, in Matt's words and in Mike Loxley's words, he's an old soul in that regard, that he's so much at ease in conversation with people. You can tell he's a great leader of men. Again, just as a freshman, he's already learned, I have to lead Kevin differently than I have to lead Joe, than I have to lead Matt, that all personalities are different. And the way that I respond to them and they to me, it all differs, but it all meshes together. And how wonderful it is at such a young age that he has the ability to command this respect. This is a freshman that is the face of the program now and performing well. Coaches kept it under wraps. It was a 3-headed race throughout the offseason, through the summer program, through the fall camps. They sat the 3 quarterbacks down. Mike Loxley did in one room. They gave him the decision that it was going to be Malik. And then he went back and met with each of the 3 individuals. Mike Loxley to Malik Washington is a big brother, father figure. They've known each other since Malik was in, I want to say 8th grade. Watching Loxley would go and watch Malik play football, play basketball. There's a great connection between the two.
He was an excellent basketball player too, right?
So good, good. And you easily, when you watch him walk in the room, he is all of 6'4". He's 225 with room to put on muscle. He's sleek, just looks the part and has immediately commanded respect. When you talk to Ted Monachino, the defensive coordinator, he'll tell you that group's tough to play against. When you talk to Pep Hamilton, the offensive coordinator, he'll sit there and go, we're going to be best if I minimize the quarterback. Well, in the first game, Florida Atlantic loaded the box.
Right.
Hamilton wants to run. And he's got a freshman quarterback, and you figured he'd want to ease him in. They threw it over 40 times because they had to. And this young man was able to make the adjustments and the reads incredibly well. I'm impressed. They've got a really good thing going there.
Pep Hamilton, for those of you who don't know, is Maryland's offensive coordinator this year. Remember, very, very closely associated with Andrew Luck, both at Stanford and in Indianapolis, where he was the OC in Luck's first few years. Pep Hamilton knows quarterbacks for sure, and he's quite the character as well. We're talking to Joe Beninati. Maryland is 2-0. They've got Towson this week, and then conference play starts on September 20th at Wisconsin. They actually have a schedule that's favorable in that they don't play Penn State or Ohio State this year. But just give me your early impressions overall of the team. They've been pretty good defensively, but how much of that has been the opponents?
I love the freshman class. It starts with Malik. But when you look at the defense, and if we're going to go that side of the football, there are defenders who are true freshmen who are making immediate impacts. And the coaches will tell you right off the top, these are not your normal freshmen. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden now you're getting, and this is the great part for Maryland football fans, you're getting the top local athletes to stay home more and more. And that's what you're seeing with Malik in particular. That's what you're seeing with someone like Nasir Taylor, one of their jack linebackers. Sidney Stewart, fantastic pass rusher, sort of a Sam linebacker who's a stand-up on the edge kind of guy, wreaks havoc. These guys are so young and so far beyond their years. And on the defensive side, they have a lot of good things. It's all centered by Daniel Wingate. He's the center of their universe defensively. He is a 6'5" guy who looks like he could play small forward, but who hits like a wrecking ball and is fabulous from sideline to sideline.
Number one, but so is Farouk on offense.
Jalil is the player that came in from Oklahoma. He's one of Malik's favorite targets.
Right.
But Malik's always looking for 9 Fleming or 5 Smith, two of the guys he really gets along with very well off the field and on the field. They've got so many different weapons there on offense. They want to run. Pep wants to run, and he says that offensive line is getting better and better, striking more fiercely, being more of a bully. This week you're going to see them take Towson to task. No disrespect to the Tigers, but that's going to be a physical mismatch. You'll learn a lot when they go into Madison. They get Wisconsin in the Big Ten opener. Whether or not Billy Edwards, their quarterback a season ago who transferred there, will be ready, I don't know. Wisconsin will be coming off a game. I think the Badgers have Alabama this week, so how they'll respond a week later to Maryland's visit, we'll see. But I really like this team. I like where they're going, and Loxley will tell you they're not exactly as deep as he would want to be. But what I can tell you just from the eye test, Kevin, is in the past, 3, 4, 5 years ago, however long ago, I'd walk onto a Maryland practice field and I'd say, "Ooh, there are some guys here with NFL body types." Okay. Some. Then you go to Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State, and they're everywhere. Maryland is getting more and more and more of those guys like, whoa, they passed the eye test. And that's a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's done a good job of putting guys into the league. I mean, they have had some really good talent, especially skill position talent. But you mentioned something about Pep Hamilton wanting to run the ball. I think with a young quarterback, they're going to have to run the ball much better if it's going to be a successful season once they get real competition in the Big Ten. And they haven't really been able to run it that well against Northern Illinois and Florida Atlantic. That's my one concern offensively. What do you think?
That's the nature of the beast. If you're going to win in the Big Ten, you think about weather conditions later on in the season in the fight of conference play. When it's cold and it's windy and it's not favorable for the passing game, you better be able to run it. And the first thing Pep Hamilton did, Matt Millen and I sat down, he goes, it's my job to pour enough gunpowder into the face mask of those offensive linemen that they come out so explosively. We want to be the big bully on the block. And whether or not Perry and Wright and Hershey and Ba and Haran can do it, they have confidence in them. Malik Washington looked us right in the eye. The quarterback said that offensive line room, nobody, no group, no single position group works harder than that offensive line group. They want to knit together and create chemistry. They've done it. I think Isaiah Wright, the transfer in from Buffalo, who didn't play last year, who was hurt, but I think he's the glue guy Perry and Haran have to be the leaders and the protectors for Malik, but I haven't seen the best push from them yet. But I keep hearing from Pep and from the O-line coaches that they like what they're seeing, that they are gelling together, that they are trusting each other, and that they can be a physical unit. Now, let's wait and see when they go up against Big Ten power conference rivals.
We are less than a month away from the Caps opening up their 2025-2026 season at home against Boston. Alex Ovechkin will be the story again, Joe, right? As he tries to get to 900 goals. He's 3 away from that. I'm assuming that that is a major milestone and isn't going to be, the record breaker, but it's going to be a big focus of hockey fans starting in a month.
And it should be. And Alex will blush at all of this individual attention he's received over the last, 20 years, but especially the last season. As Alex turns 40 in the week ahead, it's just amazing to think about where he sits in the pantheon of all-time great players. But when it comes to goals, nobody's better. Nobody. Absolutely no one. And that includes the great one, Wayne Gretzky. And I think 900 will come quickly. I sure hope all goes well for Alex and for the Caps through training camp. Everybody stays healthy. He's 3 away. Selfishly, I would love to have 900 back on the airwaves on Monumental Sports Network. We've been so lucky. We've had 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700. We didn't get 800. That was a national televised game. We hope to get 900 and see how far he can push it. Time will tell if this is Alex's last season. Alex will ultimately tell, but he is working to be as fit as possible, to be as good a leader as he can be for a team that he really likes. There's not very many jobs up for grabs in training camp. I saw Spencer Carberry yesterday at Craig Laughlin's Laughlin Family Foundation event, and there's not a lot of jobs that are open. There's maybe one in the forward ranks. This team's going to be good again. Let's see how good.
Thank you for doing this. Enjoyed the last 2 weekends you calling Terps games. I'll talk to you soon, probably right before hockey starts. Thanks, Joe, as always.
My pleasure, Kev. Thanks for watching.
Joe Beninati, everybody. Hockey season less than a month away. That'll be a big story for sure. Ovechkin's 3 goals needed to get to 900, which will be, of course, the first player ever to get to 900 goals. Doc's going to join us in 10 minutes. I've got some coaching blunders from the weekend when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. Don't forget, you can watch us on the Team 980's YouTube channel. Please, when you get there, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. All right, we're going to do some coaching blunder stuff this year. And if you guys want to call in with some 301-230-0980, you can do that as well. So you were going to play that sound bite from Callahan, the coach of the Titans, right?
Sure am.
All right, let me set it up first. So on Sunday, the Titans-Denver game, there was a completion from Cam Ward to Elick a Manor. I don't know who that receiver is. He's a new receiver. It was a 23-yard reception, and the receiver, Aya Manor, managed to get his elbow down, even though the feet came in out of bounds. But we all know any body part, an elbow equals 2 feet, etc. Callahan didn't challenge the play because he didn't get a look to see if the receiver had gotten a foot down as well. And after the game, he said, quote, an elbow doesn't equal. Is this the sound you have, or do you have him admitting fault?
Yeah, no, that's it. That's what I got.
Well, play what he said after the game.
Yeah, you got to get a foot in bounds too, which we didn't have a clean look at whether his foot was down as well. An elbow doesn't equal 2 feet. So his foot would have had to come down as well. We didn't have a clean look. So the call from upstairs was that it wasn't more challenging.
Yeah, except an elbow does equal 2 feet. According to the rule book, a player must make contact with the ground in bounds with both feet or with any body part other than their hands. The call should have, according to the NFL, been challenged, and it would have been overturned. The ruling, an incomplete pass, it would have been a catch. So, look, you're the head coach. If you don't know the rule book, that's fine, I guess, but you have to have somebody that does. Where's your challenge guy?
We can be eliminated.
Where's the guy telling you, throw the challenge flag? He got an elbow down before the feet were out of bounds. It's a catch. You've got to have a challenge/game management, clock management guy. And that guy's got to have access always to the head coach. And it can't be Bruce Allen. That's the only rule. Yeah, Bruce did it one year. He handled all the challenges. Big mistake, big blunder by the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Brian Callahan. He did, by the way, admit yesterday, I guess, in his coaching, in his press conference, day after coach press conference, saying, quote, my interpretation of the rule was wrong. I'll own it. I didn't do a good job in that moment, and I should have challenged it, and it would have probably resulted in a potential explosive play. Not probably, it would have, for sure. I talked about a couple of times on this show the mistake that Sean Payton made in that very same game. So the Titans actually had opportunities at the end of the game, down 20-12. There were some drop passes. There was a fumble late. But Denver, in trying to run the clock out after Tennessee had called their last timeout with about a minute and 40. Minute 5 left. All right, the clock is stopped for the last time. Tennessee with no timeouts left. They're at the Tennessee 36-yard line. They could kick a field goal, 53-yarder, to go up 23-12. But instead, they, for some reason, try a long pass that wasn't really an attempt at a pass. It just ate up some of the clock, 6 seconds, incomplete, and Tennessee took over down 20-12 at their own 36-yard line. You either have to kick the field goal or you got to punt. It's 4th and 8. One of the two. Having Bo Nix drop back and throw a bomb towards the sideline to try to burn 6 seconds that had, by the way, no chance of being completed is not the move there. You punt it. It's a rookie quarterback. You're at home. You've got a good defense. They've got no timeouts. They have to go the length of the field and score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion. And he gave them the ball with 59 seconds to go at the 36. And I'm telling you, he had multiple receivers, including my former Terp Chig Okonkwo, wide open. And there were drops, 2 drops on the final drive that would have put him deep into Denver territory with a chance. That's strange because I always kind of feel like Sean Payton's pretty good at this stuff. And then this one. Billy Napier's time in Florida, I think, is winding down. I mean, the Gators lost to South Florida 18-16. And this dummy had 2 timeouts left. And let me just walk through the play-by-play here at the very end. So it's 16-15 Florida. South Florida on a long drive. And they get a 1st and 10 at the Florida 32-yard line with 1:45 to go. So they're in field goal range right then and there. So he doesn't call a timeout. They run the ball they run the ball for a big play. They've got another 1st and 10 at the Florida 20 with a minute to go. So now it's chip shot field goal range. And Napier's got 2 timeouts, and he doesn't use any of them until there are 22 seconds left in the game. And then he uses his final timeout with 3 seconds left in the game. Look, yes, there are 2 timeouts, and technically they can run the clock down. But if you start calling those timeouts at a minute, and you called at 57, and you called again at 52, they can run it down to 12, theoretically, and kick the field goal, but they can't walk you off on a field goal. And not to mention, when you call those early, you never know. There could be a penalty on them that forces them to throw. There could be a penalty that stops the clock, gives you a third timeout. And his comment after the game was, look, there's going to be a field goal kicked regardless of when the timeouts get called. It's all going to end up about the same. Actually, it's not going to end up all the same. Worst case, you'll have some time left on the clock versus no time left on the clock. But yeah, a horrendous decision. And then we mentioned this at the top of the show. Last night, Ben Johnson, in his first game as head coach of the Chicago Bears, was completely oblivious to the scenario in which they had 1 timeout, down 10, and you have to have the 2-minute warning be a timeout for you. And they should have kicked a field goal with about 2:20 or so left and had the 2-minute as a second timeout. They ended up scoring a touchdown with 2:02 left, but Minnesota did the right thing and returned the kickoff, eating up those seconds before the 2-minute warning, ensuring that there was just 1 timeout left in the game for Chicago without the 2-minute, which means that Ben Johnson with 2:02 left, and he got lucky that they scored before the 2-minute warning because they weren't trying to necessarily. They didn't really know what to do there. But at that point, if your kicker can't sail it through the back of the end zone, have him kick it out of bounds and give him the ball at the 40, but at least they're going to have to run a play before the 2-minute warning. It's your only chance to win. Doc Walker next.
All right, happy Tuesday. It is September 9th. Here is what's happening. The Vikings, they completed the comeback last night on Monday Night Football to beat Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears 27-24 from the Windy City of Chicago. Jacksonville Jaguars, they are trading Tank Bigsby to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for a 5th and 6th round pick in 2026. This marks the 5th trade the Eagles have made since mid-August. The Nats, they beat the Marlins by a score of 15-7. Cade Cavalli with a solid performance of 5 innings pitched, giving up only 6 hits and 2 earned runs. He notches another win and improves to 3-1 on the year so far. Josh Bell's hot streak continues after he hit his 3rd home run in his last 2 games. Again, Nats win 15-7 tonight. They will continue their series in Miami. Mitch Parker on the bunt versus Adam Mazer. First pitch at 6:40. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:10 on the Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
some sort of phone issue, but then again, it might be our group with the phone issues. We're efforting to get Richard Doc Walker on the show, where it will be my privilege to have him on this show. He's usually very busy. He does a lot of other shows. I feel great when he comes on this one. It means a lot. We'll find out what Doc thought about the opener and what he thinks about the Packers on Thursday night. A game, by the way, that I know it's week 2, and we can talk about, and justifiably so, the nature of NFL seasons, especially early in the seasons. But this is one of those games that we could be looking back on at the end of the year and look at it as a very important game. Could be for seeding, could be for some sort of wild card berth. Big game for week 2. Really, this one and Kansas City and Philadelphia, the rematch of the Super Bowl, are the 2 biggest games on the NFL card. This will be a good test for Washington's offense. The Giant defense, excellent. Green Bay's defense, outstanding. And obviously, it will be a different test offensively, defensively for Washington to face Jordan Love and company versus what they got on Sunday. I am, though, I have to say, even though it was the opener, even though it was the Giants, I feel like it's a different group defensively. They're definitely bigger. That is for sure. Do we have Doc yet? No Doc yet? We got him? Richard Doc Walker. At, of course, Rick Doc Walker on X, on Twitter. He's got a podcast, patreon.com/Doc Walker. He's on the airwaves all over town, including 106.7 The Fan and this station. It's my honor to have Doc back on the show. So what'd you think? What were your big takeaways from the win over the Giants? By the way, thanks for doing this. Means a lot.
No, I thank G from the shop for lobbying for me to get me back on a regular basis. But Fab Five, my basics don't change. If we protect him, pretty good chance you're going to win. If we can run the football, and I didn't know that was going to be a gimme because, again, Tyler Badass had a big assignment. Alleghetti, Connolly, the Fab Five, Coleman, Tunsil. So they won that battle, and that wasn't guaranteed.
When Cosme comes back, will it still be the Fab Five?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then when you see, the thing they've got is this booster. This John Bates thing is insane. He is so good at eliminating people that it helps their running game. It's like the big fella in Baltimore, the big fullback.
Yeah.
John gives them this added punch that is as good as anything I've seen since Johnny Warren, and being able to control and being like a third guard. So the running game, I was very pleased with that. And also Akler, I thought he was my bonus shot coming in. I go, this guy has such immense talent, and you hadn't seen him all preseason. He doesn't need anything. He's like Joe Washington on steroids. And he gave him a boost. And then, of course, Dollar Bill came in, did his thing. So I was pleased with the running game. And then the rest of it will get better on. And they will get better on it. You just cannot not practice or not have live contact and then expect it to be flawless.
Yeah, this was their first tackle football game of the season for many of them. What did you think of Debo's first work?
Sensational. But he's been working all camp. He had a lot to prove. Last time we saw him, it was not good. And in San Francisco, and he made amends for that. And again, bag time, the same thing, with Deron Payne. I really like the way the operation is being run, but you put guys in that bag position, they're gonna play better. Deron Payne, one thing I know he understands is payday, and when that bag is available, he's as good as anybody.
Yeah.
And this is where you try to keep him, and I think that's one of the things.
Can you fool him into every year being a bag year?
Well, I just think that's up to management. You got to make sure that you keep him hungry. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just showing you he has another speed. He also is playing next to a savage.
Yeah.
My biggest surprise was the dominance up front of our defensive line. And so these guys were active. They were nasty. And all my cornerback buddies tell me that a man's best friend in the secondary is pressure up front. And so Lattimore is now healthy. He took so much abuse by people that are just ignorant when it comes to the worst position to play in pro football, injured, is corner. And yet he could have pulled out, played hurt, saved his reputation. He balled out. He tried to give you everything he could and got called everything but a child of God. Now healthy, he's as good as he wants to be. Amos on the other side, that's another give management a high five. Coach, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You know how hard it is to hit on people? Look how many Dum and company failed on over the past 4 years. So that scouting, that evaluation of talent, what Peters is doing, is priceless.
You know, you said something, and every time you're on there, it's, you know, you got to take notes because you learn so much. But you said something that really makes a lot of sense. And that is that corner, more than any other position, is a position where you're already exposed, but if you're hurt, it can really look terrible. If you're an offensive lineman, interior, and you're hurt, it's hard for people to notice. If you're a corner, everybody notices.
Well, and I understand that people don't understand. But again, you know, Jarris White was my roommate, corner.
Right.
Brian Carpenter, Darryl Green, my dogs. Look, man, it's the hardest position in sports if you're hampered, because the guy opposed to you could run 4.3, could run 4.4, could be like a Jefferson where it don't matter his speed, but he's an athletic freak. And yet you out here and never complained, took the ridicule, tried to do the best he could, and I'm happy for him. But this Amos guy, just go front office again. And it's all of them. It's scouting. Somebody had to recommend it. Somebody's been scouting. These people are so much better than the past, the predecessors, because they don't miss. Everybody misses. Nobody's perfect. But when you take a corner and you take him in the first round and he's no longer on your team a year later, or you pass on the safety that's generational now in Baltimore,
right?
Somebody's got to pull you in. Well, they already did. They got rid of them. But the point is, we're suffering from that. So this quick turnaround with this staff and management has been able to flip this script. It's amazing that they've been able to pull this off.
You know, by the way, that corner that they took in the first round is now playing for the Rams and for Sean McVay, and he's apparently playing really well. Starts a corner out in LA. You know this. I'm not telling you something you don't know. But with young people, sometimes it takes time, and you got to give them some time. And maybe the fit isn't the best,
Coach.
You know, so you got
to have the right coach coaching.
Yeah,
you don't put your worst coach as a secondary coach. Yeah, you get your best coach in the secondary. People, that's why Nick Saban and those guys, what do they coach? Secondary. Only a numbskull would put a family friend in a position of that. It's ridiculous. I'm glad the kid saved himself, but he didn't get the job done. I don't care who's coaching him. You got to have some of this on your own. I saw Darryl Green be thrown in there as a baby, and he responded. Okay. And he didn't go to Notre Dame, but you couldn't tell. But he had Pettibone and company. He had pros coaching him. So it makes a hell of a difference. I mean, you can't make up for fake staffs. I don't care how much money you have. Either your people can communicate and get people to learn and do better, or they don't.
Yeah, and that group struggled with that. What did you think of number 3, Will Harris?
Again, who do you benefit from? Who do you credit?
Well, he was in the box a bunch. He hit some people. I just wanted to know what you thought of his game. I get it. Up front, they helped out.
Yeah. Well, again, when you're getting that kind of push, and I can't evaluate the New York Giants O-line after 1 week, but they go against some real thugs. So if they can survive their practices, don't tell me they can't play, because their group is vicious on defense and they hold up. But, they were losing the starter, and everybody has to play hurt. Everybody's got to fill gaps. But when you got to worry about JD5, I think he throws everybody off. because everybody's afraid because of that option that maybe he still has it, maybe he doesn't. That's a heck of an asset. And we've seen it, with the Buffalo-Baltimore game, which was a classic, because those two guys that play that position are incredible. And it stuns everything.
Talking to, of course, the only one, Doc Walker. What did you think of Jaden's game?
Well, I think he was off. But his off is everybody else's all-time best. His development without his ace receiver there, I thought he did well because he puts everybody in check. I don't know what he did. He probably would tell you that he'd like to have a few passes back, maybe, maybe not. All I know is that he controls everything because he scares the heck out of you defensively. Now, he missed Terry. I don't know who's on that. Everybody misses. But he had a primetime player that was 100% all in. Debo was like, holla back. And then you got Ertz. And so Ertz is so good at what he does.
Yeah.
And then when you put Eckler in there, he had enough support around him, but I guarantee you, he might not even say it publicly, but just watch Thursday night because he makes up for things rapidly. And I do think I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about everybody but him.
I think somebody over the summer called Ertz Jaden Daniels Binky. And that's always,
I did.
It's always good
and
to
I'm
have
sure
a
somebody
Binky.
else, some of the 27-year-old will say he did it. But yeah, and I think it makes sense. Well, there's a lot of pirating going on the airwaves lately. So you almost have to get things copyrighted.
Who took Binky?
What's so funny?
Who took Binky?
Who takes damn near everything that's said over there?
I have no idea who you're talking about. It wasn't me.
Okay. Well,
I credited you.
No, not you. Ask your producer. Yeah, he knows.
We'll discuss later, Kevin. I'll tell you who he's referring to.
Yeah, discuss it later. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to throw up in my mouth.
I don't want to out him on the air, even though he's been outed dozens of times.
Keys to beating the Packers on Thursday night.
They're pretty much the same, Kev, every week. Don't help somebody beat you, especially when you're on the road, because the place is always going to be open. But they play in front of capacity crowds everywhere they go to. They're like the Beatles now. It's no longer the past. This is a whole new structure, and they're built for it. They're ready for it. But you have got to get off to a good start and protect 5. We protect 5, and we get after their quarterback. You got a shot because pressure bursts pipes. It never fails. If that D-line picks up where it left off, now, Green Bay's good everywhere. They're just a blue-chip organization, top to bottom, even without Lobster Murphy being in charge. I'm really impressed with them. But that kid from Dallas is a game wrecker.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel comfortable coming in there that we'll be able to keep him at bay. But it's going to be a barn burst. I can't wait to see who's ready for it.
Thank you for doing this as always. It's an honor.
No, and I pray that whoever was injured and couldn't make this slot today, I hope they get better.
You were my number one. I'll talk to you later. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Richard Doc Walker, everybody, at Rick Doc Walker on X, on Twitter. There's a stat out there, and I'm looking for it on Micah Parsons from the first game. Basically, it was essentially with him on the field, the amount of time the quarterback had to throw was almost a second less than with him not on the field. He is a factor, no doubt. He is as good as any pass rusher in the game. They're going to have to account for him. Washington in their opener played a team with some very good pass rushers. Brian Burns is a good pass rusher. By the way, Micah McFadden got hurt in that game and went out early. If you go back and watch the game, Abdul Carter, I don't even know where he graded out PFF-wise. See if you know where he graded out PFF-wise. He had 1 block punt and probably should have had 2 blocked punts in the game. But I thought he was outstanding on defense as well. He was tough to block. He was in Jaden Daniels' face a few times. He wear number 51. Why did he pick 51? I know he wanted 56 initially, and they laughed at him, which is exactly the way it should have been handled. I mean, that's LT's number. But Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and Thibodeau and, of course, Dexter Lawrence, they got some pass rushers, and they did a pretty good job handling them on Sunday. Green Bay will bring maybe the best in the biz as a pure pass rusher in Micah Parsons on Thursday night. Joe Theismann's going to join the show tomorrow, and we'll have somebody on from Green Bay as well. Stay tuned. Chris Russell is up next.